Yeah, and everybody's got their own start point, right? Like everybody listens. Like if the kid who listens to house music or going out to EF, the Electric Forest, and they listen to that sort of thing, it might be difficult to like introduce them to metal. Well, maybe it's KMFDM, maybe it's Ministry. Like maybe you got to come from what that they already enjoy.
Yeah.
If somebody likes country, well, then you maybe try to find something that's got some acoustic guitars in it. So everybody's got kind of like their own starting point.
Yep.
If they're not already in the house of metal. So.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Metal Maniacs podcast. I'm your host, Jay Ingersoll, and I'm here with my co-host, also known as Johnny B. Good.
Your boy Modd. What's good, Jay?
What's up, buddy? That's that's a banger, Johnny B. Good. Man.
Always. It's a jammer. Anytime somebody busts out some Johnny B. Good, man, I'm straight neck whiplash.
I always think about the one of my favorite movies of all time, Back to the Future 1, where he's like, "You're not ready for this sound." Like when
but your kids are gonna love it. Kids are gonna
love it, man. It's badass.
It's awesome.
So how you been, buddy? It's been a couple weeks actually since we got in the lab.
Yeah, what do we had? Probably my wife worked one of them, and then do we have Father's Day before that?
Yeah, Father's Day. Yep, and then it kind of worked out because I did a double duty on shows the last time we would have potted, so it was kind of nice to not have to try to pot on Sunday. I was dead after 2 nights out, and into the
you had 2 shows, didn't you?
Yeah. Played Friday in KZoo, but we played first, and I was gonna like turn around and just leave when we're done, but I always kind of feel like a dick.
Yeah,
because it's like I want to be able to like mingle and at least watch the bands and shake their hand. But I got to see a couple bands, Implicator,
nice,
and then this Bad Terms band, and they were both pretty cool.
Sweet.
Implicator, we jammed with them before. They were possibly a band I'd like to get on the show.
Yeah.
And then Saturday we played at Mulligan's, and of course those are late shows. They start at 10, so we knew we were in for a ride that night. You know, but and
you played later too. You said right?
Yeah, we played third. So this cool band that played last night out at Rake, Coyote, they played. They kind of remind me of like if I just had to put something on it, like the Sissy Boys kind of, but they do more like halftime stuff than the Sissy Boys. So they get a little more like into the hardcore, like kind of that type stuff. It's not all kind of upbeat. And then this other band called Sticky Rat, and they kind of reminded me, they're like some young kids, but they kind of reminded me of that After Midnight band that we had on the show.
Yep, I remember.
Like they were just some young kids. I mean, 20s, but they like good singing, good songwriting, and like they kind of shredded or whatever. I was like, so it was kind of a cool lineup because then it was us, and we're kind of in between, I guess, you know. And then Black Temple, who's straight old school death metal, like everything's gnarly, satanic, and dark and whatever. But they put on a hell of a show too. So
sweet.
But yeah, that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, it's been a good 2 weeks off, and I think in the time since I last saw you, I had Mr. Mike Miller of Vestigial come out to my house.
Oh, yeah?
And he detailed my car for me.
Oh, nice.
And he did a hell of a job on it. I told him, I was like, hey, I realized I have like another appointment at 1:00 p.m., so we got to cut it off then. So he came all the way up from Grand Rapids. He was going to start at 9. I told him, you might want to consider 8. I know it's, like early. He's like, no, dude, 8's fine. I'll be there. And I was like, cool. I'll meet you at the door at 8, and then I'll give you the keys and you can do it inside the garage or outside. But yeah, in the 4 or 5 hours, 4.5, 5 hours, he was on the car. Man, he did a great job. So if anybody's listening to the show and they're looking to have their car detailed for a fair price too. I mean, he wasn't like over the top with it, but he, got the mats. Like I looked at my car and I was like, dude, it looks brand new in here. Yeah. Like there's shit in here that I didn't think was coming up.
Yeah.
Like the dash. I was worried about the dash because the material.
Yep.
Almost like a rubbery kind of, like thing. But yeah, he had the right stuff to spray on it and not leave it all streaky and like chalky or whatever. But yeah, he had the right stuff. And the only thing is because I had to cut him off, he's like, well, your mats are still wet. Oh. I was like, okay, I just set them out on the front porch, let the sun cook them. It took days.
Oh, really?
I got out there with the shop vac and I'm trying, but that was my bad because I had to cut them off. Otherwise, he'd have taken another hour to just vacuum them. But shout out to Mike from Vestigial, great drummer, and also a great car detail guy, and also a great merch guy,
and a good friend. Honestly.
Super cool guy. I love him.
Hell yeah, that's badass, man. That's funny. I got my car detailed a few weeks back too. It's makes such a world of difference. especially if you never had it done. And
Yeah.
I'll get out there with a vacuum and wipe it down and everything once in a while, and make it look good because I don't trash my shit. But still, it looks so much better when someone knows what they're doing and can get out some of that shit that you can't because you don't have the tools. You know?
I told him, I was like, dude, I don't live like a slob. Like I don't treat my car like poorly, but it has been since I bought the car.
Yeah.
It's been 10 long years plus whatever. He's like, oh, that's fine, dude. And he didn't have any comments about the condition of it, but you got the cup holder that's got the change in it. And it's just catching every crumb and drop of Coke. Like
anything that's stuck in there is all sticky.
Oh man, he made it look so good. I was like, dude, I think I gotta sell this car now. Like, it looks brand new.
That's awesome.
So yeah, shout out if anybody's looking for the car details, hit up Mike Miller.
Yeah, and then real quick, last night I went out to. So Shauna wanted to go to this pop punk tribute thing at the Deck.
Okay,
never been to the Deck. Didn't want to do the food thing because we knew it was going to be a whole thing. But we went down there. There's a long-ass line. We already heard that it was going to be hard to get in. We actually got in, but we were waiting on Bree and Zach. You know Bree and Zach, right?
Yep.
So we're waiting on them, but they didn't get there till late. So then they just shut it down because they were at capacity. So we ended up leaving. And we actually went to Rake. So I got to see Tunnel of Love last night. So that was cool. Got to go down and see Luke and Jeremy and Brett and those guys. So that was kind of cool. Went down there, caught a couple bands at Rake. So that was fun.
Yeah, I saw the pictures. That's cool.
Yeah. The pop punk thing was pretty cool. Those guys sounded great. They're like some band called Louder Now from Chicago or whatever, but they just covered and I'm not into pop punk. I didn't know. I knew one of the songs, which is Paramore, because that was like the only band that I liked of all the bands they played, because I don't listen to Taking Back Sun. I don't know any of that shit. Yeah. Shauna's singing every lyric, and I'm like, I've never even heard this fucking song before. I'm like, this pop punk shit is so far beyond anything that I ever would or did listen to.
I get you.
That whole thing missed me. I know a lot of fucking music and a lot of lyrics to music, but that shit missed me by a long shot.
Would you classify it as all mostly pretty upbeat and happy?
Yeah, and then heavy on the choruses, 4 choruses per song. Every song has 4 choruses, but it's cool just to see all of everybody out there dancing and just having fun and singing along. I'm like, dude, you can't beat that no matter what, whether it's your thing or not. People are having fun. It's and they were great. They sounded good, man. So I was like, I always have respect for that shit. I
always have a musician's existential crisis when I see something like that. I'm like, man, how hard could it be to just get up on that stage and play these? Well, first of all, you better have a great singer. If you're going to do that style of music, you better have someone that can sing their ass off.
Yep.
And then you just got to have a knack for writing those songs. You got to know how to get from your verse telling the story to the big crescendo chorus that the whole room wants to sing with you. And I'm like, well, it's harder than you think.
Yeah.
From a musician standpoint, maybe you're just banging out a couple of chords and really easy parts from your instrument. But from a lyrical and vocal perspective, you got to have a little bit of magic dust in your pocket. You got to know what you're doing to sprinkle on those 4 chords or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. That melody is everything that you sing over those 4 chords. You know what I mean? Because everybody uses the 4 chords, but how are you going to make that pop, like you said?
Yeah, and we're always reaching as musicians for more and more and more musicianship and more that we can do with the melody and the guitar lines and stuff. But they're like, well, I just got these 3 notes.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, those 3 notes are actually perfect together.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
Way to restrain yourself.
Yeah, and that's the hardest part of writing that kind of music.
Yeah.
If you come from our background where everything is just more technical, faster, whatever, and then it's like, man, this sounds really terrible when I play these 3 chords. And then somebody else can do it, and you're like, that sounds excellent.
Way to go. You're great. How do you do that?
Yeah, exactly. But they sounded good, man. I mean, fucking Paramore, that's a tough one to pull off, period, just because she's so good. She's such a great vocalist. So he made it sound awesome, dude. And like I said, it was cool just seeing all the people. I kind of wish we were there I kind of wish they got in and we could have stayed, but it was also nice to go down to Rake and I'd
like things.
Yeah, it was
2 places in one day. That's super fun.
And that's the whole thing is supporting Jeremy and them shows that he throws on. I can't go to every one. I wish I could.
Right. Sunday's a tough call, or Saturday night, right?
Yeah, it just it just all depends. And sometimes they'll have them on weird days, or we'll have Easton, and I just don't really want to do all that. I just want to chill with the fam sometimes.
Yeah. Same with me yesterday. I didn't want to get out of the house, but with the kid kind of being on the mend, but it's the whole idea was we were going to have a family day one way or the other, so I didn't feel right about leaving to go. Hey, Amy, just take care of the sick kid. I'm going to go have fun. That's kind of lame. So I expressed a level of boredom, and she's like, well, you can go. And then I kind of felt like a jerk for even announcing my boredom. I was like, well, I didn't mean it like that.
Right.
I didn't mean I'm upset.
Right.
I'm just like, it was more like thinking out loud. Like, is there something we can do? More than just kind of sit here and veg.
Yeah.
But no complaints. The kid's on the mend. Hopefully,
good. Hopefully, she start to feel better soon.
Yeah.
So
speaking of kids,
well, I was going to say, good thing we did kind of cancel then yesterday too, and then we're still good for Wednesday, right? To get together for music.
Yeah,
stuff? Okay.
yeah.
As long as she's feeling good and everything by then,
should be fine.
Cool.
One would hope, one would expect.
Yeah. All right, so this episode today, we are talking about gateway bands. So this was a idea that you had brought up, or we just, one of our idea brainstorming sessions. We thought this would be kind of cool. Now, we talked before the episode where this might be a little tricky because this could go in a lot of different directions.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to kind of curtail mine with my personal story first.
Sure.
And then I have mine broke down to a few different genres too.
Okay.
Like, the whole point of the gateway band is we're a metal podcast, right? So we're like talking about getting into metal. What could get you into metal or the heavier metal?
Yeah.
Or a lot of the bands and ourselves, our stories have been this progressive start with this band, go to this band. Oh, I checked this out. This got me into this. And then what bands that we could present to maybe our audience or other people that they could say, hey, check this band out, and then maybe their voyage into like heavier extreme metal might happen. And extreme metal's not for everybody. You don't even have to go that far. But I just got some different examples here. A gateway band is basically considered a musical group that serves as an introduction or entry point for listeners who are new to a particular genre.
Yeah.
Obviously, in our case, metal onto extreme metal, death metal, however. And then, especially more extreme niche genres like death metal, black metal, grindcore, hardcore, etc. So these bands are typically more accessible due to their production quality, song structure, or melodic content, making them easier for mainstream listeners to enjoy before diving deeper into heavier and more abrasive music. So that's kind of the...
Yeah, and everybody's got their own start point, right? Like, everybody listens... Like, if the kid who listens to house music or going out to EF, the Electric Forest, and they listen to that sort of thing, it might be difficult to, like, introduce them to metal. Well, maybe it's KMFDM, maybe it's Ministry. Like, maybe you got to come from what that they already enjoy.
Yeah.
If somebody likes country, well, then you maybe try to find something that's got some acoustic guitars in it. So everybody's got kind of like their own starting point if they're not already in the house of metal. So you always have to consider that as well, I think. But yeah, as far as like the key points, I think you nailed it on the head. That's pretty much what I had on my list here as well. Like, you got to have the production, the songwriting, the melody. So
So, like I said, I'm going to start with my story. I'd like to hear your story. We kind of know each other's story, but just for our audience, if you're not aware. But as I was going through this list of bands and like trying to brainstorm a different, bands that I could bring up as good examples, then I started to think, well, these bands are perfect examples because that's actually my story. So it kind of helped that I was getting into guitar as well. Yeah. So that helped because when you're learning an instrument, like what are you interested in? Do you want to learn country licks? I lean towards rock because that was always my thing. So just starting off would be like a Black Sabbath.
Right.
For me, it was like easier to play on guitar.
Yeah.
Had a little fuzz. It was a little heavy. But like how many people got into metal through Black Sabbath because they were kind of the OGs of metal almost. We've talked about this before as far as like the evolution of metal, but also as like a gateway band. A Black Sabbath is an easy start. Or I would also say like Ozzy. Yeah. Ozzy was a big one for me. Yeah. It was my first real concert. We talked about that in a concert episode. But Ozzy's like very accessible because he doesn't scream. It's not crazy. There's no like double bass or anything. It's a lot of melody. Of it's happy, but it's like pretty shreddy, and there is some metal elements going on there. So I think those would be two really good jumping off parts. And that's kind of my style. And then it kind of went into like the biggest band in the world, Metallica. Yep. Obviously that's probably been a gateway band for many people, even now.
Yeah, still.
Yeah. So that was kind of where I started, but it did help that I was getting into playing because it's like Black Sabbath is kind of easy to play. So you could be like, oh, I can play that Iron Man riff even though I'm fucking 3 weeks into playing. You know what I mean? Like, or Metallica was a good one too because for how many songs they have that are pretty difficult to play, they have a lot of shit that's kind of easy too that you can at least be like, oh, I can play that Fade to Black intro.
Yeah.
you know. So that's kind of my start, but I thought those would be two big bands that just right off the bat would be an easy kind of transition. Or, you know, if you include Ozzy 2, 3, but
I mean, for me, I think like my first favorite song in life was Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi.
Okay.
That I can remember.
Yeah.
Like if there was anything before that, it probably wasn't rock or metal. And then from your Bon Jovi, you get into maybe like Skid Row and Warrant a couple of years down the line, the hair metal stuff. So that was like, prior to that, my parents were listening to the classic rock. You know, they'd hang out with friends playing cards and stuff, and kids over here in one room, adults in this room over here doing adult things, and, you'd hear anything from like a Fleetwood Mac to a Steve Miller Band, a Pink Floyd,
CCR,
Aerosmith, AC/DC.
Yeah.
So you're growing up in the MTV generation, in the 80s. So there's actual music on the TV, actual music videos. I remember, like Faith No More in '89. It's hard to believe that song was that long ago with Epic, but that was a big deal.
Yeah.
When you're 8 years old. And you're like, oh my God, this slaps so hard. And the parents are watching like, this is what music is now? Compared, now it's, almost 40 years old, 35 years old, whatever.
Right.
But, so my journey starts with like hair metal. And then, you start looking around at what else is out there. And the uncles have the posters on the wall, the Megadeth, the Anthrax. And so I start getting curious about what those bands sound like, and this is just before like the Black Album comes out and Enter Sandman drops and basically breaks the world, So I got into like I'm the Man, the single, so it had like 5 songs on it, one of which is a Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, a Black Sabbath cover. It's one of the best Black Sabbath covers I've ever heard. And I got into Rust in Peace before Countdown to Extinction dropped, and I was like way in over my head. I was like, holy shit, this is fast and just a lot going on. But I remember Hangar 18 sticking out, and I was and Holy Wars, like, oh my God, these good songs, So from that you get into heavier things, Next thing you know, you're listening to Pantera.
Yeah.
Oh God, that's gritty. You got that fry vocal in there with Phil, that gruff. And then just looking for heavier things. And next thing I know, I'm listening to Deicide self-titled and Carcass Heartwork, and then the floodgates are wide open at that point. So that's a matter of your childhood in the 80s. You listen to all this classic rock, you find the Bon Jovi song, and then all the hair metal, and then as that kind of fizzes out, you find the thrash metal, and then as you've worn out that, and that kind of fading out too, the grunge is there. Yeah, I like the grunge rock stuff, but also still wanted to staying true to the metal, like. You go beyond that, and then you find the death metal. So after the thrash metal, the death metal, and then everything else after that. But that's pretty much the journey. It starts out just based in the way that you're raised and what's accessible to you. And my buddy Cribley, he's like, dude, your parents listen to rock? My parents listen to this other stuff. Like it's not rock at all. It's, whatever, like the Rat Pack or, like Sinatra and just like, just like things that are like, man, that's a journey to get from
there to there.
Yeah, from stuff that's not even categorized as rock whatsoever, rock and roll even, to you're to getting to punk rock and stuff. So he had quite a journey, a different journey. He's like, man, that's at least your parents listen to rock music, dude. Right. I was like, yeah, no kidding. Now that you mention it, like, and pop stuff to my mom. But my mom was the one that brought home the Black Album into our house.
Oh, really?
Like that didn't come from me. Like I'm all of a sudden like. I'm hearing Metallica playing out in the well. She liked like 2 songs, but she bought the tape. So pretty cool journey. I'm here for it. Journey's another one. I love Journey. Boston, great stuff.
And for me, my journey didn't kind of start because my dad always played, but he was into Neil Young, but he'd be playing the same stuff, like all the GRD stuff, anything that was on there. Then I started to get into things like my first 2 tapes ever I bought with my own money were Nirvana Nevermind, which is funny because I don't even like Nirvana at all. Yep. And then Ugly Kid Joe, Ugly as They Want to Be. So that starts off as you're like 10, 11, 12 or whatever, and you hear a song on the radio and you're like, okay, I like that, so I'm going to go get that tape. And then you start playing that tape because I was kind of, young. I was Vanilla Ice, MC Hammer type dude, but that was just one of those things where it was like all the other, that was what was happening, so you were kind of very impressionable. But my journey kind of didn't start until I started playing guitar, and then that's when I started diving into more stuff. So then, but yeah, those are all great jumping off points. Like a lot of the radio stuff would kind of get you in there, you know. But as we're talking getting into heavier stuff. So, you know, say you start with a Metallica, Black Sabbath, you could throw like an Iron Maiden in there. They're very accessible, you know. When you first see Iron Maiden and you see their tapes or whatever, you're like, oh, this is gonna be some evil shit or some crazy stuff, you know. And then you like listen to it and you're like, oh, this is fucking happy as all get up. You losing it there?
I think I'm losing it, but I'll tighten it down.
The bottom,
yeah,
the bottom there. But yeah, so then you talk about, you know, if you're just talking about general metal, heavy metal, you know, you're going to start with your Metallicas, your Iron Maidens, your Black Sabbath, that kind of stuff. If you want to get heavier, then so you're already digging the Metallica and Megadeth,
right?
And then you like find like Slayer,
right?
Oh, this is a little more than
a lot more bite.
Yeah,
there.
this you're not really hearing this on the radio,
no.
And, you know, and you're like, but it's adjacent to a heavier Metallica or a Megadeth, you know. And obviously, we've talked about Slayer many a times on the show and how they would be a gateway band, but they're kind of like the big gateway into death metal because if you can handle the Slayer, and you still want more, there's a little bit more out there for you. You know, there's that. It goes up even a more, you know, a higher notch than Slayer. So, so I would say like Slayer, but like Pantera, obviously, you know, you listen to, I don't want to say early Pantera, but you go from Cowboys to Hell, and if you're still on that ride when it gets to Great Southern Trendkill and you're hearing like Suicide Note Part 2, you're getting to some territory there that's pretty damn heavy. In hindsight, if you haven't heard death metal or anything and you hear Suicide Note Part 2, you're going to be like, what in the fuck, man? That's just bulldozer over the face of, you know, metal. So, but yeah, for like general, you want to just talk about like general metal, and then if you want to break it down by like category, and then you get into, you know, we talk about death metal, right? So then say you got into death metal. Well, what are kind of the gateway bands? Like you say, hey man, I just want to hear some death metal. What am I going to listen to? Well, for us, it was Death. Yeah. Because that was also adjacent to a Megadeth or a Metallica, really. Yeah, it wasn't so abrasive with the grind and the blasting of just 280 BPM double bass and just guttural toilet bowls or anything. Because you're just not going to be able to handle that. But if you hear Death, you're like, okay, this is almost accessible, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a heavier, like, Kill 'Em All, right? You look at Scream Bloody Gore, and it's just like a raunchier version of, you know, Kill 'Em All. Yeah. You know, like the vocals are raspy as opposed to James. He hits those high shrieky notes and you know, his screams, you know, but there's not a lot of fry in the vocal cord there. Whereas Chuck, he's just grilling you with the fry vocal. Yeah. But the songs and the guitar lines, the melodies and stuff, they could be on Kill 'Em All, if you ask me. I'm like, that stuff could be right on Metallica's first album. So very accessible, especially as you move into Leprosy as well. Like, you know, just a progression of a cleaner sound, you know. So those are good jumping off points if you're wanting to just walk through that death metal door. Death would be a great starting point for sure.
And with his vocals too, they're still audible. They're still you can still comprehend what he's saying. You're not trying to make out the words. You know, maybe earlier Death a little harder, but like later on, it's like you can hear he enunciates every word. You can hear clearly what he's saying on every word.
That's why my favorite thing is like, how can you understand what he's saying? And I'm like, you can't.
Yeah,
like,
just
listen to him for a second instead of hearing it. Listen.
Do you not know English language? Pretty straightforward. And then like, you know, the door, like the death metal would be like a Cannibal Corpse, right?
Yeah, the brutal stuff.
Like that's literally the guys standing at the door to get into the death metal cafe. You know what I mean? It's those guys. They're checking the IDs.
The corpse at the door.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, because they are death metal. But now you're getting into the brutal shit, and now you need to be able to handle, because I remember along my journey, I was into Death. Right. I was into Carcass. But at that time, when we were starting to hang out, I remember getting Wake Up and Smell the Carcass, and you pulled that little fold out, and it's fucking JFK with his head blown off. I was like, this is fucking kind of scary. And then I fucking...
It's a bit much.
Yeah, I borrowed The Bleeding from Adam Garvey.
Yeah.
And I'm reading these lyrics, I'm like, oh, this is fucking fucked with a knife and this and that and just all the lyrics. I'm just like, what is going on? Like, I was scared. I was like, this is frightening.
Yeah, people write this stuff?
Yeah, I was like, this is absolutely, like, I just remember that feeling. It was so visceral and just, like, I was taken back. Like, this is a little much. Like, this is kind of force-fed broken glass. This is a lot. I don't know.
I have to circle back to this one.
But then all of a sudden, then it just goes down. It gets crazier and crazier from there. But then it almost like comes all the way back around and becomes comical at that point where it's like, it's not really that serious. But at that time in my life, I thought it was because I'm 14, 15 years
young
old.
And impressionable, as they say.
So it was a lot for me because I'm just like, damn, who's writing these lyrics? This is a lot, you know? But, you know, Cannibal Corpse, that would be a great one to start them, even though they have 20 fucking albums and they're all a little bit different, you know? Like, at the surface, you can say, hey, Cannibals all sounds the same. But if you really start breaking down their albums, everyone's a little bit different because of member changes and just sound change all the way through. But obviously, for me, like, if you're going to do a Cannibal Corpse, I think the Bleeding's a great stepping on point because it's death metal, but it's still not so over the top where I'm not giving you Infinite Annihilator type fucking extremeness, you know? So
yeah, but they probably lend themselves well to that.
Oh yeah,
it's the next thing. Yeah. The Infinite Annihilator. But the Bleeding, great production, great instrumentation, and a great representation of brutal death metal.
But if you're getting into the death metal and you want heavier stuff, you know, that I would say like Death Cannibal Corpse. You know, you got your big Florida bands, Morbid Angel, all that, but you might not even be ready for Morbid Angel at that point either because that's still pretty. There's a lot going on in the Morbid Angel as well. But you know. But yeah, say you got past Slayers, you got past Pantera, and you're into death metal, right? And then what's kind of weird is, you know, just pertaining to my story and how it could then you could throw in like a melodic Gothenburg At the Gates death metal type band, right? Like or In Flames.
Yeah.
So those could almost be a gateway band into something a little bit more as well because they're way melodic.
Yeah.
At least the later At the Gate, Slaughter of the Soul.
Yeah.
In Flames, though, you could put on that early stuff, and there's a little bit of something for everybody. Yeah, he's got the Fry vocal, but like, there's a lot of melodies, and the upbeat stuff on there is really gonna take you maybe from Iron Maiden, or a Judas Priest.
Yeah, and that early In Flames stuff has got a lot of instrumental passages too, where you don't even have to concern yourself with the Fry vocal.
Yep.
So that might be something where when people hear those instrumental tracks, they're like, man, those are so good. I want to hear more of that. And they can look past the Fry vocal. And that, for a lot of people, that's a big hang up, right? Just being screamed at. Just, that's not singing. Well, that's fine. You know, like, we've talked about it before on the show. It's kind of a percussive thing. It's kind of like going more with the drums, and it's a bit more storytelling. And no, we're not singing along the choruses here, but it becomes an interesting thing what somebody can do with their voice, and you start to accept it gradually. But yeah, maybe you start out with instrumental passages that At the Gates will do or In Flames will do, and then you realize that there's so much going on with the music, you just start to enjoy that, and then look past those vocals until it becomes a thing that you slowly accept and understand, and then ultimately appreciate.
Yep. Yeah, so like that's where death metal can kind of start leading you down a different path because then that's where you get into the like, well, is there really subgenres or why is there so many subgenres? Well, this is why, because an In Flames is different than a Cannibal Corpse. You can't just say it's death metal.
Right.
You can, but you kind of can't. You know, like if you were really just like, here's two death metal bands, Cannibal Corpse and In Flames. Well,
some purists are going to have a problem with that In Flames being lumped in there.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's going to be one of those things where it's like, well, is it really or is it not? So that's where we get into the subgenre hopping and all this. And that's why all these subgenres are created, because you need to tell the difference between an In Flames Jester Race and a Cannibal Corpse Bleeding, like, you know, or Cannibal Corpse Eaten Back to Life. It's so much different,
right? But
it's still kind of all under the same umbrella. But so then you're like, okay, I discovered the Swedish metal, this different stuff. Well, then it gets more into this like metalcore type thing, where this genre spawned of metalcore, right?
Yep.
So, I found the At the Gates, or I found the In Flames, or another great band. If you're talking newer gateway bands, would be a Killswitch Engage.
Sure,
because now you're combining. Maybe you didn't go down the path that we went down with that 90s death metal. Maybe you're starting to get into it now. And this is where I think we need to differentiate. And this is why I have some example of some newer bands that you could listen to today that maybe lead you down the path. Because maybe Black Sabbath just isn't on your radar if you're a 25-year-old
Exactly.
kid. You know,
Yeah.
maybe that's something you might get to. Maybe you love Black Sabbath. I don't know, but maybe that's just not your thing either. I'm just saying that's kind of my story. And those early bands, a Led Zeppelin or a Black Sabbath, that's just kind of the progression of music, and that's maybe my story. But a younger kid, maybe, you know, in their 25, 30, hey, I want to get into some death metal or, you know, heavier stuff. Well, let's start with this Kill Switch Engage and see how you do with that.
And I think a big part of that too, Jay, is you could introduce somebody to those bands, but they're not touring. So there's no real drive to want to listen to a bunch of music if you know you can't experience it live in the moment with people. You can't go out to a concert and see Black Sabbath. I mean, you got the last one coming up here.
We're not going to count that.
we're going to wheel Ozzy out onto the stage and put him in his seat. Like, that's not really the experience, you know? Like, you want to go back to the 70s and be in that crowd singing along to Sweet Leaf. You know, you want to live it. And so recommending some of that classic rock that lean toward the heavier side or very melodic side that ultimately would become your hair metal to your thrash metal, it's almost a foregone conclusion because, it's fun to listen to when you're hanging out, but you can't really take it past that. You know what I mean? There's not going to be a live experience for you. Maybe a tribute band, but you missed it. You know, like, it's over. Yep. Steven Tyler's hung it up. He don't sing no more. Aerosmith's done. So you're not going to the concert.
Right.
And I think if we're going to have this show today and really offer somebody something like realistic, you'd have to say it's a touring band, you know, with some name recognition, right? You don't want to sit here and say, I got pocketfuls of gateway bands on my rack. Oh, you might like this, you might like that, but nobody knows who they are.
Right.
You know, they're low key. They're good. I had to dig for years to find a band like that.
Right.
Only to turn around and I can't really recommend it because there's no water cooler name recognition. You know, we ain't talking about these underground bands that I like.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, that's neat. But, I've heard of that. What's that like? Let me hear that, you know, let me help you because I know.
Right.
You know, so you want to have some name recognition to your gateway bands because you want to go out to the show and say, they're coming this summer. If you like them, we can go and see them. You know what I mean? Like, that's a big selling point.
That's a great point, dude. That's a great point.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I thought of that myself.
No, I didn't have to consult anybody about that one. No, that's a great point. I do like that. And then we talk about the water cooler band, you know, too. That helps. But like a Kill Switch Engage, right? So you're be like, okay, well, they got some screaming, but you might hear. Like, actually, yesterday we were coming from open house, and they were playing, I believe, from Kill Switch on the radio. Yep. And I was like, okay, this is where we're at. Yeah. I'm happy for Kill Switch. Yeah. I love fucking Kill Switch. But that might be something that would be like, okay, you kind of like some of the heaviest stuff. Well, check this out, because there's a lot of these songy choruses on here. Yep. And they do, like, especially the new one, gets pretty damn heavy. And I don't care what anybody says. There's some heavy shit on there. There's always been. If you haven't heard that, I don't know where you've been. You haven't listened to the same Kill Switch I listen to. But, you know, Kill Switch could have been one of those bands that might, you know, bridge the gap for you if you're looking into heavier stuff. Then you could throw in a band like you know, if you're talking metalcore, you're talking about maybe like a Bring Me the Horizon. Yeah. So they kind of
huge catalog now.
Yeah, and they're like maybe an arena rock band now.
Yeah.
I mean, when I seen them at Upheaval, I was like, they were great.
Sure.
Wasn't really my thing,
right?
But they were great. But everybody was singing their songs, whatever. And I knew they started off more as almost a deathcore band, right? They were like heavier with the breakdowns and the really guttural lows and stuff like that, if I'm not mistaken. And so they could be a band that might be a gateway, you know, for newer style, right?
Absolutely.
And then you got a band like and then you could go down the metalcore list if you want. Under Oath, a Parkway Drive. There's all these bands that now we're mixing a lot of the clean singing with the heavy stuff. So that makes it almost a gateway, more accessible, because maybe I can handle this now. I can handle some of the screaming, but I do like the singing. Yeah. But maybe I'm like, I need even a little bit more, right? Yeah. I need something even beyond that. Yeah. So then you can get into... And let me just, before we go into the next thing, I kind of want to just back up a little bit. So we talk a lot about new metal on this show. We have, you know, so let's not forget, and I don't want to like...
To the detriment of our listeners.
Yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse, right? But, I mean, new metal was one of those things, too. Where,
you had to be there for it. I loved it.
Well, that and like, what a gateway genre.
Yeah.
you got these dudes that are into fucking like hip hop and stuff, and they're like, oh, I like that new Limp Bizkit track.
Yeah.
And Limp Bizkit, they got a little grit to them. They're not the heaviest, but they do bridge that gap.
Well, $3 bill, y'all. You're not going to tell me that's not heavy. Like, I'm just not hearing it. Like, if you don't like $3 bill, y'all, that's fine.
Yeah.
But it is heavy and it's dirty and it's mean and it's like the rest of the Limp Bizkit catalogs, whatever. It's fine. You don't like it. I don't care. Like but that first album is pretty rough. Like, you're not going to tell me it's not. I mean, you can tell me you don't like it. That's fine.
Yes.
But you're not going to tell me like it's not heavy. No, it's actually, especially for being on the radio every day. Counterfeits on the radio every day. Like, I'm not talking about the satellite. I'm talking about, FM dial.
Oh yeah.
Like, every day car ride home, you getting counterfeit. I'm like, oh my God, turn it up, please. Like, that slaps. It's so heavy in your face. Fred's turning blue in the face, screaming, spittle coming out the mouth. Like, I mean, that new metal stuff. The whole genre was a huge, and it kept metal going off of the death throes of hair metal, right? Like, and you got the grunge thing, so like metal's dead.
Yeah.
Like metal's in the grave. And people say, no, there's always metal going on. Well, sure, there's always metal going on, but where's it at being represented out in the world where it's face forward and people are aware that metal is a thing instead of like sweeping it under the rug? Oh, metal? Yeah, nobody cares. We need it. We need people to care. We're going to need gateway bands always, period. End of. Because if you don't have the gateway bands filling the arenas, then you don't get the little club shows, because you got to have the band carry out some of those little club bands out onto the big stage for some people to discover them. You want metal to be successful in the stratosphere and on the radio because it's good for the whole genre. It keeps the whole thing going. You know what I mean? You got to have it you got to have the Metallica doing load and reload. You got to have it just to keep metal popular for the sake of metal. Now, you don't have to listen to it like it. Once you get down there in the trenches, once you're way deep down in it with the cattle decapitation or the emperor, you're so entrenched in like the nasty, like you don't care about that popular stuff anymore. And so you tend to cut yourself off from it. But objectively, when you step back and say, well, what's good for metal? Well, Metallica's pretty good for metal.
Yeah.
Like, they're pretty damn good for metal. Like they still trot out the Master of Puppets live.
Yeah.
like they're still playing it.
Yeah.
They're still
playing. They're doing those.
They do all that stuff live. So it's good for metal.
Yeah. And then, like I said, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but, the new metal stuff, it got a lot of, dude, I knew a lot of motherfuckers in high school. We got the death shirts on and everything, but by the time we graduated in this new metal shit,
Korn.
There's a bunch of dudes that are like, oh, I like Korn, I like Limp Bizkit. Like, they're starting to get into the heavier stuff, and they were just some preppy ass jock that made fun of us for having long hair and metal shirts because they didn't know anything about music, but they were jocks and shit, so they didn't really. Music was always meant our life. Like that, sports was their life, so I get that. But I need something to pump up for the big game. Well, I'm gonna listen to Limp Bizkit, and oh man, I heard Pantera last night, and it's like I remember some of these stories because I remember some of these guys coming to me. Hey, I need something for the game or whatever. I'm like, okay, I got you, dude. Whatever. Like,
check out this Machine Head.
Yeah. I may not give you fucking At the Gates right off rip, but I'll give you something that's gonna, And so that's the big thing about new metal. You could be a fucking elitist all you want or a gatekeeper or whatever, but new metal did fucking. And then just going back, the point I made so many times on the show, the band that we've said, not even one of our favorite bands. Probably one of our favorite albums of all time, but Slipknot. Yeah. They kind of bridged that gap. Like, they're one of the biggest gateway metal bands ever. I swear to fucking God. Like, as far as taking it from new metal, what new metal was and the popularity, and then it started to die down. Well, Slipknot brought that heavy back, the double bass, the grind, and then just the total fuck you attitude that you need to have in metal. Yeah. That was the big thing. The hate, the angst, the everything about the system. Fuck everybody. We're 9 dudes on stage. Yeah. We don't care about anything but just going hard. So
it's a great time to be alive.
Yeah. So that's a big but even now you could listen to a Slipknot song. They're gonna have a song on the radio, song on Guitar Hero, a song on Resident Evil soundtrack.
Yep.
And you're like, man, that's pretty cool, And it could be one of the more popular Slipknot songs. But that might bridge the gap of like, oh, I kind of like this. Then I might start going down that road. So I think one of the biggest ones just of our time ever probably would be Slipknot.
Agreed.
But, Korn's right there too. I mean, Korn's badass. You could say a lot of those new metal, System of a Down, because they're bringing in a lot of those punk elements. So then you might start going off in that avenue, and we'll go down that path in a second. But yeah, so I can't forget about the new metal as we progress, because the new metal was kind of a little bit before the Kill Switch and the Bring Me the Horizons, Parkway Drive. But if you look at it as like date wise, it's very similar, because that early Kill Switch was just right off the cusp of like a lot of that new metal when it was starting to dive down.
Oh, yeah.
So these bands were active and doing their thing. So I'm not going to say it's all because of Slipknot that Kill Switch got big or something.
Right.
But it does take a Slipknot to take a Kill Switch and Engage on tour.
Yeah.
Or a God Forbid, or these type of bands, right? So, big shout out. I'll respect Slipknot forever, no matter what. No matter what you feel about them, no matter what you feel about their music. But okay, so we talked a little bit about that's why I kind of broke it down to genres, because there's a lot of ways we could go with this, right?
And timeline.
Yeah, exactly. So we kind of talked about ours. Now let's talk a little bit about say you just want the gritty nasty
get
shit,
right
right?
in it.
Yeah, we want to get into it. So, like, give me the craziest shit. So for me, growing up, we listened to death metal a lot. I remember cruising around with my mom's roommate, and he showed me Deicide, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, he's like, this is satanic death metal. And I'm like, okay. But he listened to a lot of black metal. And I'm like, so what's black metal? You put on black metal, total garbage. So fucking
take it off.
It was fucking garbage.
Stop.
So with black metal, it's a little different, because if you're like, I need something a little bit more, black metal necessarily isn't something more than death metal. Like, I kind of feel like death metal and extreme metal, that's like as heavy as it gets. Black metal is this whole other thing.
Yeah, it's not more than, it's other than.
Right? So because even at times, black metal's not even that heavy, really. It's more about the attitude, the ethos around it, and just the overall, like, okay, it's evil as fuck, and it is for a certain somebody. But say somebody wanted some black metal, I'm not showing them Mayhem's first record.
No.
I'm going to bring them on with some Demu.
Yeah.
Something that's got some production to it.
Yeah, some black and death metal.
Yeah, something that I can bridge the gap. Maybe some earlier Behemoth.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe Cradle of Filth's a tough one, because they're so all over the place, because they could go on, even your first example back in when you said, a guy that likes, he's at Electric Forest, and I show him KMFDM. I show him Ministry.
Yeah.
Well, you could show him some Cradle of Filth, because they have a lot of like industrial, weird pop, goth kind of shit going on sometimes that's like happy and upbeat too, that's dancey and stuff. So, but I might show you that. And then maybe you might want to go all the way back to their earlier catalog, which sounds like absolute shit. I've listened to some of it recently. like sounds like shit, but it's cool music. Don't get me wrong. I do like some earlier Cradle.
Would you maybe show them some of the Emperor anthems to the Welkin
at Dusk? Yeah, I'd probably show them a little bit of that, but like I'd probably get them in with something a little higher production quality and say, if you really want to go down the dirt, start listening to and maybe like a Dark Funeral too, because they've always had a little bit better production. It's been a little cleaner. But if you start getting into like their early, like even some later Immortal probably, but like if you start getting any of this early, any of this early black metal, you're just gonna not have a taste for sound. You're just gonna be like, why does this sound like complete fucking dog shit?
Fuzz.
Yeah. And we know the reason why, right? The reason why it sounds like that is because they wanted to sound like that, because they only wanted certain people to listen to that. That's why. They didn't want guys like us listening to it, because we'd stick our nose up and it'd be like, I can't hear the double bass, but that's the reason why that music. But if they wanted to go down that path and they're like, I'm feeling a little satanic, I'm feeling a little black.
I woke up feeling a little evil today. I woke up with this pentagram over my heart.
My mom got me this corpse paint kit for my birthday. I really need some music to go with it.
It's just two colors. It's just black and white. That's all it is.
You can mix them, go a little gray if you want. Like
gray around the eye.
But I wasn't sure. My mom got me this corpse paint do-it-yourself kit for my birthday, so I want to know what I can listen to while I'm putting it on. So that's what I'm talking about. Black metal's a tough one. Because you really want to go way out there when you start getting into that shit.
To me, it's like that's almost like the end game of the gateway bands. It's like
end boss.
You never start with the black metal. I mean, that's okay. So maybe the closest I've come to introducing somebody to metal was through the band Ulcerate. Okay. So I got this classmate of mine at the Culinary Arts Institute. Right, we hang out and talk recipes, and we study and we cook, and we're hanging out pretty regularly. And then one day I'm like, hey, bro, like there's a concert in Detroit I really want to go to. And I don't really want to go by myself, but I will. How about consider it? I'm not saying you'll like it, but we'll just have an experience, right? I'll take you out there. If you don't like it, it's fine. It's like, it's a free ticket. It's on me, like just come along if you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so dude got hip to it a little bit. He listened to some of it, but in the moment, you talk about selling it. He's out there loving it. He's moshing for the first time. He's just, whooping it up in the crowd and just loving it and just had himself a great experience. So that was a gateway for him, the live experience of it. Like you can listen to it on the album and be like, all right, I hear it.
Right.
It's pretty wild,
yes.
But then you go out and you see it and you understand it a little bit more in the context of what it takes. They're actually performing it on stage, and the drummer, Jamie St. Marat, he's like, oh my God, like this guy is never steady in the pocket. He's always all over the kit, right?
It's just a constant jazz fucking fusion thing going on.
And the guy, the vocalist is going, just the whole time. So when you live it and you experience it, you have another appreciation for it. And it's one of those things I find with a lot of non-metal fans is when you get them in the live environment, they understand it better. Oh, it makes sense now. Like they're playing that music. It's not just like on the radio or this happy little beat this jingle that I appreciate, this pop music stuff. But then you sit there and it's a spectacle and you really love it. So Ulcerate was one that I introduced somebody to. I'm not saying it's for everybody, but good production. Like you can listen to it and you can hear it, in my opinion. Like,
for sure.
I don't know how far back, if it ever gets raw or nasty, but to me, it was always super clean. Even the dirty stuff was like, crisp and clean. So that was an experience too. I think the live experience counts a lot for gateway entry to metal.
I would just like to expand on that a little bit more before we get into maybe some of these newer bands that we're talking about, because I want to get into a section of like a band that I might show a guy today that's just like, hey, so that would be kind of more of a subgenre. Do you think we missed? Well, we did miss one, but I'll go into there. But I think even for me, the live experience, even at my age, so I'm not a big deathcore guy. I said that many times on the show.
Right.
And I'm starting to like a lot over the last 2 or 3 years. I'm getting into a lot of hardcore, and I'm really liking a ton of hardcore now. But I never really understood it until I seen it live.
Okay.
So until you experience like a hardcore, like a Walls of Jericho, and I said that I won't go into the story, but when you see that and you see the energy and you see what that, you like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Because it's made for live.
Yeah.
It's made for crowd participation. It's not made for me just to jam. I mean, Walls might be a little different, but another great example is Acacia Strain. Never really listened to it because it kind of all sounded the same to me. Seen them live with Despised Icon and Dying Fetus, and everybody was just singing along with it, going crazy. And I was like, had this utmost respect for now Acacia Strain.
Yeah.
Whereas like, will I listen to them? I tried to, and it still kind of all just kind of blends into one.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's not great. It's just not for me. But I do say that I hold those guys on the highest regard because I'm like, these dudes are doing it.
Yeah.
And they have all those people singing, screaming, moshing, all that. It's like, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
That energy, that live. So live is huge. Like even for a guy like me, made me understand metal a little bit more and the different genres of it, Right. And then of course you're going to see a band. Like I'm not a fan of Chelsea Grin, but I seen him play a few, might have been last year now or whatever. Not a fan because it's just another deathcore band. But they ripped, dude. They shredded.
Sure.
They sounded fucking amazing live. I mean, not a note missed. One guitar player, dude, was sweeping all over perfectly. I'm just like, okay, these guys can fucking play. Like, I had a couple of their albums or one or two, and I just couldn't get into them. It was too much. But when you see something like that live, it's like a whole different game.
Yeah.
So, like, really, the live experience is really where it's at. If you want to talk gateway, like, you could, even for a guy that's knows all the metal shit and will listen to any band you throw at me or heard most all of them,
Yeah.
So, But yeah, I just want to expand on that a little bit. You saying that because I think even live is such a different experience. You start to understand.
You
music.
see the energy.
Yep.
You feel it in the air.
So let's go. What I want to do is talk a little bit about, before we get any of these newer bands, because I feel like we're going to talk about these bands for a little bit. Like some of these newer bands, and I know a few that might be on your list. I got a few. We might even share a few.
We're doing lists?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm like,
But so for me, I didn't talk about punk rock at all.
Okay.
Because that wasn't my journey.
Yeah.
But punk rock is very well, just because of the evolution of metal, thrash, and all that. If you want to listen to that, go back to any of our subgenre episodes, and we talk about all of this in more depth. But you could be a punk rock kid and be like, yeah, this is heavier than rock and roll. You go all the way back to like the Sex Pistols or something like that. It's like a little more angst than rock and roll. I need something a little bit more than, Elvis or whatever the fuck you might be listening to at the time. You might need a little more than CCR. You might need a little more energy. So you start getting into punk.
Yeah. Elvis the Punk is a huge step.
I mean, he kind of was. I mean, at the beginning, he was the guy. The gyrating the hips was so offensive. Only if he was gyrating with corpse paint, that would have been much better.
Much better.
But, the punk rock could lead you down that road too, because you might start getting into thrash metal. You might start getting into hardcore. You might start, leaning towards metal through punk rock. That just was never my journey, but we've had other bands and people on the show that we've talked about their journeys, and that was one of their, that wasn't a perfect example of just need a little something heavier, a little something heavier, a little something heavier.
Yeah.
Whereas we started with more of the rock. And I was just never a punk guy. I didn't know much about it. No one I knew listened to it, so it wasn't anything that was influenced on me. For me, it was a lot of the upbeat stuff too. I can't get into a lot of the upbeat stuff. But
my uncle was a huge punk rock guy. Still is to this day. He just prefers it. But he got into metal through punk. But then he went back to punk. I experienced the metal thing. I had a heyday with it. Got all kinds, he got into Deicide, and he got all these, his tape collection was huge, but there wasn't that much metal in it. There was a lot, but compared to the amount of punk and other things. So he's a very eclectic guy, but he loved his punk music, and he's always trying to sell me on it. Hey, listen to this, that, and the other thing out of my tape collection, and I was like, yeah, I don't like it. I'm sorry, man. I'm like, it's never going to stick because it wasn't my starting point, and it almost seems like, for lack of a better term, a regression from, it's almost derivative from the metal,
right?
I'm like stripping away elements that I like to get to like a core foundation. I could see going from punk to thrash metal because you got the beat, steady with the thrash beat, and it's the energy coming from punk carries over into thrash very nicely. But for me, going from thrash to punk, I was like, we're missing a lot of musicianship here. We're missing some of the things that I really appreciate about. Metal is now lacking because we're just banging out some chords, and not even the pop punk stuff, but even the dirty,
just OG
gutter punk stuff. Yeah. It's like, I get it. I feel that energy, but it's also lost on me quite a bit. As a listener, I can't really get enough out of it to sit here and say, yeah, I like it. It's like some of it I'm like, it's not bad, but I'd be lying if I said I go home and listen to it.
You're going to put it on or something.
Yeah, if you want to have the radio and put it on, I get it. Yeah. I'll let you have your moment and we can vibe, and I might like it better when you share it with somebody, right? Like, oh yeah, you're happy. I'm happy that you're happy. Yeah, it's cool.
Right.
I'm gonna have a memory now, but to think that I'm gonna go home and lift weights to it or take a run and listen to punk, not happening.
Yeah, not happening. But if that's your thing,
but it is somebody's starting off point, and there's ways to go from punk to metal, and there's a lot of metal guys that were punk fans, even Scott Ian of Anthrax was big into punk.
I mean, Slayer. I mean, they did a whole fucking
Jeff Henneman
that was punk
all
rock
punk
covers. So
Richard hung himself,
and that's the one. That's the reason why I like that album the least too. So
I like a couple jammers off of that, but I can lose about 80% of it.
It's just always the upbeat thing, man. It just for some reason it just always drives me crazy. I don't know. I'm just more of a halftime guy. That's just my
groove.
Speed, That's the way my heart beats is the halftime. But yeah, so those are just kind of some different subgenres, some different ways you could get into metal. But let's break down and let's go into I have some bands that I want to talk about now.
Sure.
What are some bands doing now?
Okay, so these aren't necessarily on our list, but we're talking about some now bands, right?
Yeah, I mean, my list kind of covers a lot of things, but
sure.
But I'm just thinking of even stuff that I listen to now that maybe a younger kid or something like would be exposed to at an upheaval or something like that, and then be like, oh, this is pretty cool. I came for this band.
Yeah, I feel like
I need a little bit more. So
I feel like there's a couple that I want to say before you say them, but I'm going to go ahead and let you say what you've got, and then I'm going to say like, yeah, that's the band.
I'm just gonna rip off one, and I think this is going to be, for me, I feel like this is also going to encompass. Well, I'll just say the band, Spirit Box.
Okay.
So the reason why I say Spirit Box is because they do get heavy as shit.
Yeah.
They have great songwriting,
but
they're very accessible in other ways too. Like maybe not their heavy stuff is for everybody, but like you can take it all in at once and it's not so abrasive, right?
Right.
But I also like this because we're seeing a lot over the last, 5 years now at least. We're seeing a lot more female involved fronted bands. Like remember back in the day when we'd see a band like the Great Cat or something in Metal Maniacs and you're like, oh, this chick's playing guitar, like that's so amazing. Or the was it Yasmin from, was that her name from White Zombie? Yasmin
Sean
Yusol.
Yusol. I don't know how to pronounce her last name exactly.
But I don't know why I said Yasmin. I was thinking somebody else. But yeah, you'd see those just occasional one-off like females and bands or whatever, and it wasn't such a popular thing. Now it seems like there's all kinds of females in metal singing or whatever,
guitar,
and it's fucking
drum.
awesome.
Yeah,
it's
bass,
great.
A lot of great bassists.
But that's what I love about Spirit Box. You got this female-fronted band, so you might be bringing in the females, and everybody knows in metal, and we've known for years.
Ain't no dudes at a Dream Theater concert, or ain't no females at it.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. It's always
only dudes.
It's a metal / sausage fest all the time.
Yeah.
So like you get a Spirit Box in there, and the dudes are gonna be like, "Oh man, fucking checking out Courtney or whatever." But like that's not the point. The point is the music's good.
Yeah.
But maybe some young girls might aspire to look up to her and want to get involved. So like now you're kind of bringing everybody in. It's more the demographic, right? It's kind of like. For example, just real quick, we went to the art fair yesterday. It was busy as fuck down there.
Right.
Well, why is the art fair busy? Because it's not just for people from 25 to 35 years old, males. You know what I mean? That's like a metal thing, right?
Yeah, right.
So you kind of look at it's for everybody. That's why everybody's there. So you get like a band like Spirit Box. Well, that's kind of for everybody because now you're getting like maybe some young impressionable girl that's like, I really like her singing.
Yeah, I
really like that. Maybe I could do that too. And to me, I feel like, what a better gateway to not only have good music to maybe bring you into heavier stuff.
I mean, case in point, Luke was just out there with his daughter Sloan to check out Spirit Box at 20 Monroe.
Yep.
So like you're nail on the head, right? Yep. So you're not maybe bringing your teenage daughter out to see Cannibal Corpse.
Yeah.
Like what, only if I can't get a babysitter.
Yeah. Muffs on.
We're going. Hammer smashed face.
Good thing you can't understand what he's saying.
Yeah. Just sit back and enjoy the ride. Shut up. But, like, obviously you got to appreciate the representation, right? I mean, if we're sitting here saying that as a couple of guys that like to play music that we don't want any women in the crowd, that's kind of crazy. Like, first of all, that's half the population.
Yeah.
You're trying to sell your music or not? I don't know. And if you're all just trying to bro down, like, is that all we're doing here is broing down? Like, no women around? Like, you guys, what's the point here? Like, so for me, I think, whatever reason, it's a tough sell for many women to listen to metal. It's just, they don't need all that yelling. Most women don't want to hear guys yelling. Yeah. Hey, relationship tip.
Right.
Like, guys, if you're yelling, it's probably not what they're into.
And you need to get checked too. If that's what you got to resort to. But that's a whole different podcast.
When you got to your point, when you got a Courtney LaPlante fronting the band, or if you've got guitarists like Encrypta that just shred as good as anybody else out there.
Yeah.
Man, woman, or alien, like they can play. I think it's important as a gateway experience to say that, hey, metal's for everybody. And it's becoming more commonplace, thankfully. Kitty's been doing it for like 30 years, well, 25 years, I'd say. So it's becoming more commonplace, and it's a good thing. And I think Spirit Box is probably one of the best examples because the name recognition, the notoriety, the popularity, they can go out and headline now. They were support, now they're headline. And 20 Monroe, great place to headline a show, man. So...
And they're damn good. I listened to the newest album. I've never really listened to Spirit Box. I've seen a few clips online. You've brought them up several times to me, not even on the show. We've talked about them off the show, but you've brought brought them up on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And then I listened to the newest album, obviously going
Tsunami
through 2025. It was absolutely fantastic to me.
Yeah.
I loved it. And then it was kind of my first adventure into Spirit Box.
Sure.
Trying to finish my sentence there, but I just thought that would be one great band to bring up, especially like if we're talking now.
Yeah, sure.
This is where we're at. Like whatever your journey is, I'm talking now. If I'm trying to get somebody into metal now, like we've kind of gone through the subgenres, we've kind of gone through because we're a little bit older, obviously. So we've been exposed to all this whole path and this evolution. But where are we at right now? This is where we're at right now, right?
I think another band that I would bring up just off the cuff that's happening right now that could really usher in a whole ton of new fans is a band like Bad Omens.
Okay.
All right. So let's say you don't listen to metal at all. Let's say you're into like the boy band stuff, right? You're into NSYNC or whatever. Why would you like Bad Omens? Well, Noah can sing. All right. Like the dude, he's got pipes and he's going to take, your Justin Timberlake fan base and he's going to captivate him, but now in another way with the music that they've got going on. And a lot of it is more on the rock side, especially with the new album, but they've got a track like Artificial Suicide on there. It's a ripper. He's just straight screaming. And you go back in their catalog a little bit, similarly to like Bring Me the Horizon, a little bit heavier as you go back. A lot of the stuff is made for like radio rock, your Octane category, like just Breaking Benjamin style rock.
Yep.
But you got the screams in there.
Yeah.
And you've got the heavier riffs sprinkled in throughout the catalog, right? So I think you can usher in all kinds of fans just because the guy can sing so well. He's got the falsetto and he's, really smooth and just people are going to appreciate that and then see him pull out this deep guttural like from out of the nowhere, the depths of the diaphragm, like, oh my God, like, he can do that too. So then people are like, I've never heard anything like that.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You're talking about, 14, 15-year-old kids. They don't know anything about death metal.
Right.
But a band like that could get them there. They're like, people can sing like that? People can do what he does. I've heard singing my whole life.
Right.
But I've never heard that before. Tell me more about that side of it. Like I want to go down that road.
Right.
So that's another great example. I mean, I guess I would call them a metalcore band, but now we're being a little bit loose with the metal term.
Yeah.
They've got it in there, similar to Sleep Token, right? Which I'm sure is a band that we're on the precipice of talking about, right?
Like, sure.
So you've got some metal in there, but how metal are you? Well, from our viewpoint, not very metal at all.
Yeah.
But objectively speaking, given the world of music, it's metal enough.
Yeah.
There's enough metal elements in there to say, well, it's a gateway band. So I didn't incorporate a lot of rock bands into my list, but because you really had to have enough metal in there for me to say, yeah, you're a gateway band. Right. Like I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, Breaking Benjamin, not a metal band.
Yeah, they're rock.
I love it, but it's a rock band.
And it could be a gateway band.
Totally. But
yeah,
as far as like this show is concerned and also like catering to our audience who are like, they don't want to hear about that. Like, dude, there's people on my friends list, they shit on that band. And it's like, oh, it's too bad. I love that band. You know what I mean? Like, but it is what it is. I'm not going to sit here and preach rock bands when we're trying to get to Emperor. We're trying to get to Cattle Decapitation. Well, how do you get there?
Yeah.
Well, I'm assuming the doorstep is you're already kind of a fan of rock. Maybe, but but there's other ways to get there too. Like we talked about country, punk, there's ways to get there. So you always got to consider the starting point.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Rock is accessible, so it's whereas metal, you got to dig a little deeper to find it, and that's kind of what we're talking about, because you can turn on the radio at any time and find Breaking Benjamin and be like, oh, what's that? Blah, blah, blah. And then you can start that journey yourself, but because it's laid out for you. So we're kind of talking about a little bit of work you have to get into here. Just to piggyback off your singing one, I would harken back to a band, Dayseeker.
Yeah.
So that would be a band too, because it's the same kind of Bad Omens. Like the dude can sing. He can sing anything under the sun. He's one of the best singers I've ever heard. What turned me on to them is I seen them at Upheaval. Didn't know anything about him. The dude hit every note, and I was blown the fuck away. And I was just like, wow. I was
so
blown out. I was like, holy shit, this dude is super good. I didn't know anything about this band.
Right.
I listened to him yesterday because I think they're a great band. But it's the same thing. You could hear that dude sing. He does a little bit of screaming. There's a little bit of breakdowny in there.
Yeah.
A little, just enough metal.
Some riffs.
Yeah. And then if you go back to the catalog, it gets a little heavier, like to their earlier stuff. So then that's where you might start opening that door. But just to kind of piggyback off the Bad Omens, like the dude. I don't know what his name is, but goddamn, he's a great singer from
Dayseeker.
Yeah, he's so good.
Yeah, I'll pull that up for you real quick. But yeah, that's another bit. I had to miss the Dayseeker because I was trapped in line. So I'm listening in line and I'm like, oh, Dayseeker's on. And I think I got into the venue there, maybe singing like their last song or something. I couldn't even make it up the hill. But yeah, I mean, just a great band. I agree with you.
And as a metal dude, you know, obviously my mind's a lot more open nowadays. You know, maybe 10 years ago I might have seen that and be like, man, I don't like this. They're just not heavy enough for me. But, you know.
I think vocalist Rory Rodriguez.
Okay, yep, that makes sense.
Rory. I never recognize the name now.
It's great, though. So I'd throw that one. And then just, you know, just to piggyback off that, like a band like Beartooth.
Yeah,
like
sure.
So they were almost kind of more of a hardcore band in the beginning.
Sure.
And now they're doing like arena shows because...
It's going to remind me of A Day to Remember.
Yeah, they kind of changed their style a little bit. They're more of a pop kind of... metal hard rock band, you know, and yeah, you could turn them on. Same with the Bad Omens, like they're on the radio, but they're not like 20 years on the radio, like Breaking Benjamin type thing. You know what I mean?
From
like,
the start,
yeah, exactly.
Always been there.
We're talking about today.
Yeah.
So Beartooth, band that I knew, I love Beartooth. They just have great songs, but he does get into some that heavy vocal. There are some heavy parts on the newest album.
I woke up in a Beartooth mood the other day. I just had like a song in my head and I pulled up the YouTube and I'm going down the line of hits that I know. And then I'm like, well, here's a Beartooth song that I don't know and it's got a video to it, so it must mean something a little bit more to them. They chose to make a video for it and I let it play and it's just all kinds of screaming in my face and I'm like, this is Beartooth? I'm like, this is heavy as fuck.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't recall the name of the song off the top of my head, but I was kind of surprised. I was like, because my kid's in the living room and I'm like trying to play something that we can both kind of enjoy, you know?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden this dude is just like screaming. I'm like, you good? She's like, whatever. And she don't care. But I was just like, I was surprised. But to your point, it's like, like you, 1 minute you're listening to like almost radio rock. And then the next minute I'm like, oh, this is metal adjacent. So now again, gateway band to your point. Yeah, for sure.
And what I love, to your point, what you just said is what I love about that is these are also the kind of bands that I put on when the fam's in the car.
Exactly.
Because they don't want to hear Despised Icon.
Nope.
I do. They don't. They don't have the ills for modern man. I do. You know what I'm saying?
So my poor family, 90% of the time, yes to that. Like we got to listen to something or nothing. You know, just chill.
Yeah,
I got to focus on my driving. You know, like people could probably tell you a couple of terrible mod driving stories. They exist, but having had a child now for 9 years and keeping it alive,
main goal.
Driving safe becomes like a real big priority. Like you can't just be driving fast and taking chances. But
true.
But my dash will alert me to like certain bands or songs that I like favorite, right?
Ding. Okay. Yeah.
Or I'll just have it mute, but I'll see a song come up. Well, there's a Spirit World is the name of the band.
Yep.
So they've got a song, something the Ripper. They got a new track out and it just slaps so hard. And every time it comes on, my wife, her eyes just get huge because she knows what's about to happen.
Turn that bitch up.
Yep. And I just go slowly, like, all right, so we're at moderately loud. And the song just gets heavier as it goes. Like every step of the way, it just gets more increasingly, punishingly, just grooving heavy. Like just, oh my God. I'm like, maybe not all their catalog, right? But this song, it jacks me up so hard. I'm gripping the steering wheel. It's like we're on our home road, speed limit 25, so I'm trying to hold it at like 25, 30. But I'm just like rocking so hard, and my wife is just laughing. So she probably hates the song, but she loves watching me react to it. And the kid is just like in the back, just covering her ears and shrinking up, but she's laughing too because I'll look back at her and I'm giving her the horns, and I'm like, yes, yes. And it's just the fucking hardest song. So yeah, 90% of the time, family's safe in the car.
Yeah.
That song comes on, roll down the windows and stick your head out because it's getting loud up in this.
Hell yeah. But yeah, so, you know, that was one thing is like these kind of bands, these are the bands that I put on when the fam's in the car when I need a little bit of something and I can get away with a little bit of screaming and I know they're good with it, but it's mostly good songs. So is there another band you want to speak on, or
no? I just wanted to clarify the title of that song is "Waiting on the Reaper."
Okay,
great fucking track.
But did you have another band that you wanted to speak on? I know you said
other than like Sleep Token,
Okay,
right?
we can talk about them.
Like I know they're coming up, and people are going to be like, "Oh, I'm so sick of hearing Sleep Token." Sorry, guys. Just a band that can pull so many different audiences. Great place to start.
Yeah.
Now, with the release of the last album and with the progression of the band over time, there's fewer metal moments going on. However, there are heavy enough moments in there where if you're okay with that, you can walk backwards in the catalog to the starting point of Sleep Token, and it'll get heavier, and therefore you can start to consider other metal bands, like we mentioned, through that band. Great gateway band, in my opinion, especially nowadays. Now, they're more like Tool to me than anything, to where it's like, right, like, is Tool a metal band? A lot of people are like, no, that's not metal. Then there's other people that are like, well, I mean, listen to this drummer. You got the riffs, you got the screams. There's metal components. Same with Sleep Token. And also, not for nothing, great live show. Just a spectacle.
Yeah.
The guys are coming out in the robes and the masks and the runes and the lights and the lasers. I mean, like, look, I get it. It's not, you don't want to listen to it. That's fine. You might enjoy watching it. It's fun to see. Like, if you just want to go out there and sweat in jeans and a t-shirt or whatever, that's fine too. But as a concert goer, like, you're getting your money's worth.
Yeah.
Right? Like. So, to me, Sleep Token with the vocals, you got the screams, you got some riffs, Hey, you got Mike Libertowski out here from Witch and Living Dissection covering like a Sleep Token riff on his Facebook.
Yeah.
He's like, I didn't know Sleep Token had riffs, and he's jamming the riff, and I'm like, here you go. So if a guy in a slam death metal band is willing to sit down and like, hey, I'm not saying Mike's a fan suddenly,
right?
But he just found a riff that he liked, and he's jamming it, and he likes it that much to like show people that, hey, look at this riff. I didn't know they were that technical. Yeah, they've got some riffs.
Yeah.
You can't tell me they don't. If you do, then you haven't listened,
right?
And then you're speaking from ignorance. They've got riffs. They've got heaviness. They've got qualities to them that make them metal or metal adjacent, and a great gateway band, in my opinion.
And I also think the one thing that ties them in with metal, whatever genre you peg them as, it's hard for me because I don't even really call them a metal band. And I see, dude, it's so...
I like to call them a metal band just to piss off gatekeeping metalheads.
Okay, so what the crazy thing is like, it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter your opinion. Everybody on the internet, you're going to find a handful of people that'll shit on that. It doesn't matter. I'll say Sleep Token's not a metal band, and then they'll make a meme saying, oh, Sleep Token's not a metal band. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter what you say. Everybody's going to say, fuck you. They're going to make fun of it, so it's just the internet. But there are some moments on Sleep Token that's heavy, but I think the thing that ties Sleep Token to metal so closely is the musicianship.
Yeah.
Because metal is always known to be top-tier musicians, or players,
maybe self-proclaimed, but
well, I mean,
I think it's true though.
Top of the food chain.
There's virtuosos on every instrument in metal.
Throw on Black Dahlia Murder, or fucking Necrophagist, or you know what I mean. There's players. Sleep Token, these dudes can play. All of them can play, even if it's not the most technical at times. They know how to do that thing we talked about at the beginning of the show. When you're good at those 3 chords, the pop punk thing or whatever, like if you're good at those 3 chords, they know how to do that and do the technical shit. So they've kind of got it like mastered as far as I'm concerned. They know how to write a great song. New album gets a little convoluted in some parts, but and to me it's more R&B all the way through than anything. But yeah, I would say they're a great, and the reason why they're a great gateway band is because everybody's talking about them.
Yeah.
So you have to see what it's about.
You got the
so
name
that's good for them.
Yeah, you got the name recognition.
Yeah.
You can speak about it at the water cooler. Hey, I just went out to the show last night. Ever heard this band called Sleep Token?
Yep.
I've heard of them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're really good.
Yeah,
check them out. So that's the quality that you want in a gateway band. You don't want to be handing them your back pocket favorite band that nobody's heard of.
Yep.
Now you're kind of setting them at a disadvantage because now they can't talk about it with anybody else. Everybody now has heard of Sleep Token, and everybody's got an opinion on Sleep Token. So, you can usher in new fans. I see it all the time now. I just discovered this band last week. Really? And, you don't want to look down on them or condescend to them because at some point I was new to it and they'd already existed.
Yes.
They already had 2 albums out
Yeah.
and they were just about to drop their 3rd one, Take Me Back to Eden. And I got hip to it then. So, it's like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, they've been around, but check out their other catalog. If you like that, you like the other stuff too, I'm sure.
Yep. Yeah, I think they're a good gateway band, to be honest, and it does help that all the metal publications also talk about them just because they need something to talk about. So if you don't even call them a metal band, they're still being like, well, sleep talking this, sleep talking that.
Right.
Sleep, so it's like every publication's talking about them. Shit, I was out yesterday at the beach at that show, and 3 different people's. This girl stopped. I was walking. This girl stopped her car in the middle of the fucking beach and her boy. She leans over her boyfriend. She goes, "I love your sleep token shirt." And Shauna just looks at me. I'm like, I don't fucking know. I said thanks. She's like, you're not supposed to say thanks. She was just kidding, but I was just like, 3 different people stopped me and told me they love my sleep token shirt yesterday. So I mean, that's the kind of power that they do have. So like them or hate them or whatever, they're undeniable, and that's what makes great music is just being undeniable. So
and I think one of the biggest points that we try to make, talking about gateway bands is it's good for metal. Period.
Yes,
it just ushers in new fans.
Yeah.
They could be a sleep token fan today, and they could be a fan of heavier music tomorrow. They might be, who knows what, I don't know what the next thing is, but there's going to be a next for them, if they're into Vor, oh man, when that Vor track comes on, I'm like, that's my jam. Yeah. Can we build on that? Can we go down that road a little bit more? Yeah. So again, you start with the clean passages, the R&B stuff and the trap beats or whatever. And then the next thing you know, they're like, oh, I never heard heavy stuff like this before. What else have you got? And you start asking those questions, and it's just good for metal. Yep. And you got more people coming out. Anybody who just I love a good club show, but I also want like a larger venue experience. I also want to see metal. Like when we saw Periphery at the Van Andel, I was like, I've never seen something this heavy and this big a joint. Like this is cool. So I want those experiences. So I want bands out there on the front lines, out there, media exposure every day. Bringing fans into music. Yeah, exactly.
Selling shirts. Like, do your thing.
Because too many good metal bands give it up because they just can't get the audience. They just can't make it work to sustain their life. So
it's not an easy task. It's not an easy job, man.
I would be sad if my boys in Rivers of Nile disappeared because they just couldn't pay the bills anymore. We almost lost a Legion because they had to resort to like a Kickstarter or a crowdfunding campaign to keep it going at one point, right? Yeah. They're like, hey, like if we don't get these dollars now, like we can't finish the album, then we might have to just disappear and hang it up. Yep. And that happens a lot with good bands. They just disappear. So it's good for metal to have these bands out there. Like whether you like them or not, you can at least like give them the nod, like thanks for getting the kids in, thanks for getting the new audiences in, and they'll make their way to the satanic black metal maybe. It's for somebody, it's not for everybody.
And that's one thing, no gatekeepers welcome. It's just funny, like it doesn't matter. There's so many fucking gatekeepers like, oh, you don't like Formula's Fatal to the Flesh, you're not a true fucking metal guy. It's like, I just don't like it. Sorry, dude. Like it's okay, but Jesus Christ, put the knife down. Like just because I don't like your favorite garbage album, I'm sorry, dude. Like just leave a shitty comment on my YouTube video while you're at it, since you're not working on anything and you got time to leave shitty comments. Thanks, But another band that I do want to bring up before we start to wrap this up. I know this wasn't going to be a super long episode or anything, but just a topic conversation episode. But one band I will bring up, and this might be on the precipice, and just because I love this band so much, is Bill Murray.
Okay, I thought they would be on the list
because their newer stuff's like really poppy, but like they will stop and just like kind of do like a breakdown in the middle of it, or like they'll add like, I just listened to the new track yesterday, which I don't do a lot of singles, but I was going to put it on yesterday, and I put it on yesterday, and the new song is actually pretty fucking heavy. Like there's like almost this thrash part in it, and I'm just like, so he adds elements so that could be like a gateway thing too, because you're like, oh, I like these heavy, I love this songwriting type stuff. It's almost kind of, and the reason why I mention them, that they almost just fit in with the Beartooth, the Sleep Token, the Spirit Box. Like they kind of just all fit into that. But I just wanted to say Bill Murray too, because there are some heavy points in there. Same thing that we talk about with all the other bands, where that might lead you down the path of wanting a little bit more or something a little bit heavier, So he doesn't always, once in a while he'll scream, and once in a while he'll do like a heavy, in the new song there's like these heavy ass like death metal vocals. I'm like, what the fuck, man? But he kind of just genre hops a lot too, so he's like really adjacent to that Sleep Token, where they're just kind of all over the place, and he's just always experimenting with sounds. I think that's his whole thing, or their whole thing. They're a band, but it's the one dude mostly. But so that so if you're just talking newer kind of like metal-ish or metal adjacent bands, that was kind of my list. I don't know. Do you have any other bands that you'd like to add, or any other bands that you think about? Or
I've got So I thought we were gonna just like at some point get to an actual list, but if you've like kind of covered them, and that's fine.
I was just kind of going. I was just kind of going all over the place. I just had a general outline, so But yeah, if you got some, throw them out there. We can talk about them.
There's only 2 band names that haven't come up yet, so I'll work my way into them. But my list consisted of Spirit Box.
Okay,
like to start, I just figured they're a modern band. You got songwriting qualities. You've got the clean and fry vocals, so you're able to pool in people that like the clean singing and then get exposed to that dirty, growling, gruff fry vocal, guttural. Yeah, really. She can hit, Courtney can hit great mids and super lows too. Like that's just something.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. Dude.
Yeah, and then just, great singing. And they've got the songwriting too, because you got your verse chorus structure. Yep. And, nobody's going to sit here and tell me that Holy Roller ain't heavy.
Oh.
Or Cellar Door isn't heavy. Like those are bangers. Yeah, I don't care what anybody says. If you don't want to hear Constance and you don't want to hear Circle with me, fine. But when you get to those songs, I'm like, come on now. Come on. Just tell me that those songs aren't heavy, and then you lie into my face.
Yeah, you are.
So what I wanted my list to consist of is bands that actually showcase metal. Like there's a lot of bands that we talked about that they're great for heavy rock bands, but they don't showcase enough metal. But if you go out to see Spirit Box, you're definitely getting riffs.
Yep.
You're definitely getting metal.
Yep.
And you don't like it, that's fine. It's not your brand of metal, that's okay. But they're a huge band name right now, and they've got more than enough metal to sit there and classify them as a metalcore band or a modern metal band. And yeah, they appeal to a lot of rock fans, and they've got a lot of rock qualities. Tsunami Sea was a great album. I don't know where it's at compared to Eternal Blue. I like them both. And I even like the EP in the middle, which has Cellar Door on it, which is probably my favorite song by them after Holy Roller. But they've got great stuff. We talked about Kill Switch Engage.
Yeah.
Same thing. All the reasons. You got the clean vocals and the fry vocals. That's a big thing for me, is when you're introducing somebody to a band, a lot of times you want to have that clean vocal. And if not, then you kind of go the way of Chuck Schuldiner, where you're like, well, at least it's an audible fry vocal, or more recent, like Randy Blythe of Lamb of God, where you can understand the vocal. But, Jesse and Howard both had like great cleans and audible fry vocals. So Kill Switch Engage, you got the songwriting. Another band we did mention on my list was In Flames. On the back of their musicianship and the melody and the beats. You're not getting lost in grind beats or blasts or anything like this. A lot of it's rock beats. It's steady 1-2s. Some of it's almost upbeat, a la Iron Maiden. But it's all about the guitar melody for me.
Yeah.
And Anders eventually does get to more and more clean vocals. And there's a lot of fry vocal. And you can understand most of it, especially as you get later into the catalog. I think that's a great way to introduce somebody to heavier music.
Yeah.
You can almost offer somebody up some In Flames somewhere along the path of their catalog, and it's a popular band name, right? Like it's not the most popular. It's not up there with Metallica, but you're talking about 15 albums or something like that. They've been around.
Yeah, they have staying power. For
sure. And they're still doing it. Like they're out there touring, with bands. So you can use In Flames as a jumping off point. All right, so 2 more bands we haven't talked about today. Gojira.
Okay.
I think Gojira is a great gateway band. Not a lot of clean vocals, but there are some. But again, they have the quality of being able to understand what he's saying.
Yes.
Even through the accent, it's not that thick. And they've got the songwriting, and they've got the musicianship. And they've got one of the best drummers in the world. So, when you're talking about Mario on the kit, like that could hook a lot of people in right there. That maybe some people are more about that than the flashy guitar work, like In Flames. They don't have necessarily flashy guitar work, but they've got cool stuff that they do on the guitar, whether it's taps or pick slides, these really weird
scrapes.
Stuff. Yeah, and the pitch shifter, like they do really cool things.
Yeah, I mean, for them too, just like what they've changed in metal, everybody's doing the pick scrape now, and that was just a Gojira thing, and then obviously you take into consideration what we talked about before is, them doing the Olympics, them being nominated, or did they even win the Grammy or whatever? Like,
I forget.
I forget too. But like, that's all great for metal. So that's a great, like, they're playing at the Olympics.
Yeah, world
kind of like
world stage.
It's kind of like what better gateway to go? And obviously, people think they're good enough to have them play before the Olympics. So,
yeah,
I think that's a great example. I like that.
I think you could start now. You maybe. You maybe not start with the earlier stuff.
No. You don't go back then because it's pretty fucking heavy.
Yeah, but that's the point though. Is that you can? It's still heavy on Fortitude.
Yeah,
they've got heavy stuff on Fortitude.
Yeah,
they're obviously still a metal band,
right?
But it's very accessible, especially with the last two albums, Magma and Fortitude.
So you give them Magma, and they could be
So that's metal, and then
hard rock in there too.
You can walk it all the way back to the beginning, and it's just going to get heavier as you go. So if you really like the new stuff, and you go back, and then you can burn all the way through that whole catalog and be like, what else is there?
Right.
Well, now you can get into Meshuggah. Now you can get into some things that are heavier. And you can get into Death.
Yep.
Like if you like his voice, he's kind of close to Chuck's voice.
Sometimes. Yeah.
So and then you get a little bit more of that musicianship too. If you get into from Gojira to Death, now you get more technicality.
More solo,
and if you love that drummer, you're gonna love the drummers in Death too. You're gonna absolutely love what you find there.
Yep, it all kind of goes hand in hand for sure.
And then the last band that I was gonna mention that I think is still a great band, and I know there's going to be haters on this one. Hey, look, I'm guilty of liking this band. If you don't, it's fine. But Avenged Sevenfold.
Okay.
They're still a
That's
modern.
a great example, too.
Yeah. I mean, they're basically like today's Metallica.
Yeah.
They're not as big,
Fair.
but
they are pretty fucking big, though.
They are big, and they've got a lot of diversity in their catalog when you start talking about bands like, Sleep Token that have the diversity. Well, Avenged Sevenfold's kind of got that, too, where one album to the next, they don't sound alike, but it still have a lot of metal qualities to them. One of my favorite albums was The Stage. Their last album was great, too. I had it on my 2023 list of best albums, and unashamed.
Yeah.
Like the first half of it, very hard rock, very hard metal. The second half of it, just all into this really weird, almost like Sandman type dreamy
Spacey
stuff.
Type shit,
yeah, I mean, so I loved that one.
But they're always going to shred, too.
Yeah.
Like, they're always going to play a solo.
Yes.
So, like, you can call me hard rock, but I'm going to keep that metal alive by shredding this badass solo.
Yeah.
That's one thing they've always been great at, too, So, say what you will about them. They keep it alive, man.
So, you got the clean vocals from M Shadows. You've got great guitar work from Sin Gates.
Yeah.
Zachy Vengeance backing him up with a lot of those dual guitar harmonies. Like Vengeance doesn't get enough credit for being a great guitarist because he's like a lot of power chords.
Yeah, he's a rhythm guy.
Until he all of a sudden is right there with Sin Gates, like doing the dual harmony thing. And I'm like, well, that's awesome. Like this dude is living in both worlds too.
Right.
He just doesn't get the flash in the spotlight because Sin Gates is
doing all
the next level prestige of guitarist. But Zach holds it down plenty fine. And, they've had some great drummers come and go in that band as well, right? So I think drummers is a big selling point too. So Avenged Sevenfold, you got the clean vocal, you got the fry vocal, you've got a lot of diversity, and you have name recognition. Like they're packing venues. And you can talk about this band at the water cooler. Hey, have you heard of Avenged Sevenfold? Yeah, come to mention it, I think I have heard. So there's some quality there. They've got a lot of albums, and the further you go back, the heavier it gets, right? So looking forward to what those guys are doing. They got to have a new one sometime soon, maybe not this year, but still a band that I highly respect and appreciate. It's not for everybody, I get it, but I still think that for what they do, and at one point I loved them, then I was like, I don't get it anymore. Like they're just trying to be Metallica,
right?
And then they separated themselves from that, and they're doing their own thing. So I come back around and have a newer appreciation for what they do, and just a huge fan of Sinister Gates. Like I can't help myself. I'm like, the guy's just got tasty solos like all day long. He just showcasing great musicianship.
And
so
good songwriting and stuff too.
Yeah.
They know how to pull that off. And
so for me, like those are the 5 bands that I had on my list.
Okay.
Like I figured we would kind of cover, like you said, because you could go. And we covered like everything from the 70s to now.
Yeah,
there's so many
there's
places.
So many paths you can take, right?
But those are the ones like that are literally on my CD rack.
Yeah.
That I would pull it out and say, hey,
check this out.
Yeah, I think
this,
from me
whatever.
to you might like this. This might be for you.
And that's great. One other band I'd like to mention, just you talking about Ice Nine Kills, and maybe just because they're on tour with Metallica, and have been multiple times, but or you mentioned Avenged Sevenfold, I'm sorry, but band I would mention would be Ice Nine Kills.
Yeah, they're on my honorable mentions list.
Yeah, because they're kind of the same thing. You don't really know. They have a little bit of everything, but they could be a good gateway to metal because they do get heavy, and the one guitar player is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, the dude is an incredible guitar player.
Yeah.
I think they actually both are great guitar players, to be honest. But
they blew me away at Upheaval. They stole the show.
But like, I know they're a hell like they're all great players. Like
Yeah.
maybe the music, I've listened to it, it wasn't as bad as what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be something completely different, so that's
Sure.
where they kind of had me razzled a little bit because I didn't know what to expect. I thought it was rap rock. I didn't know what the fuck it was.
Sure.
I thought it was Hollywood Undead. That's where I was getting them mixed
Okay.
up. I thought it was the same thing. I didn't know what was happening. But not actually a bad band, but that might be a good gateway band too. Like
Yeah,
Ice
absolutely.
Nine Kills that's out there. They're hustling, they're doing it, but they are keeping the metal alive, but they're not so far out there where it's like you know,
They're
this
fun.
might not be for me, you know.
They're they're almost a little bit wacky, even
Yep.
from their stage show. You know,
their garb, they've always
Yep.
dress up in the ties and shit, and
and it's similar to Guar, where you've got you've got like characters coming out,
Yeah.
you've got chainsaws and blood spurt. You know,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool spectacle.
spectacle.
Yep, and you've got a great singer up front with Spencer. Like he can sing and he can scream, and they do a lot of like almost Faith No More things where it's almost quirky, and you know they have little passages that are spastic, if you will, but then they can get into your choruses that you can sing and remember. So there's great songwriting, and they do a lot of different things. They just make it fun, and they incorporate a lot of different styles where you might be in the pocket, and then all of a sudden you're like blasting away, or you got a punk trot going on, and then they go back to like a rock beat that you can understand. Ice Nine Kills. Just another great modern band that can get you into heavier music. If you like what you're seeing there, you know you can find your way from them to heavier music.
Yep.
You know, maybe it's only a hop, skip, and a step to Callous Cowboys
Yep.
or Johnny Booth.
Yep.
You know, like you're
even Dillinger.
Yeah,
like
you're
newer
right.
Dillinger
You're
stuff.
right there,
Yep.
so you can find your way. And then real quick,
Sure.
Knocked Loose. Right.
Oh yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Like, so maybe they don't have all the elements of either say songwriting or clean vocals.
Yeah.
But they're huge.
Yeah.
Right? So now you're captivating like your hardcore audience
Right.
and your punk audience.
That's a great catch.
Like, so maybe you like Green Day and maybe you find some dirtier punk along the way or into some hardcore or whatever. And the next thing you know, you find yourself at a Knocked Loose show.
Yep.
You know, you're watching Jimmy Kimmel and you're just trying to see who's talking, and then Knocked Loose comes out with Poppy and just melts your face and blows your speakers on your TV because you weren't ready.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that's a band that is killing it right now. And admittedly, I have said this many times, I can't help but start to like them a little bit more because of what they do for metal and how much I hear them. I don't hate them the more I hear them.
Right.
I like them the more I hear them because I
Right.
just give them more of a chance to do what they do.
Yep.
And I try to understand, like, why do people like it? And I'm like, doesn't matter why people like it. People like it. It's good for metal. So Knocked Loose, great band. And you could also say that a guy like Devin Townsend would be a good gateway for some people.
Yeah.
Now, not a lot of name recognition. In the metal community, yes.
Yeah.
But outside of the metal community, still not really.
Yeah.
And partially because he's had 20 different monikers
Right.
over his life, you
Yep.
know, so you've got all these different projects.
Yep.
But there's so much in his body of work that you can say, hey, he's not very well known until you get into the metal community. Then we all know who he is, but there's just so much there that you can listen. You can sit down and listen to like these really heartfelt strumming acoustic songs or whatever, and then you can get yourself out to like Bastard or, you know, Detox from Strapping Young Lad. You know, like there's just so many different genres in his body of work that you can get into some Devin Townsend, just on my honorable mentions list. So those are the last names that I had. We covered everything that I had to talk about.
Okay. Just you saying one thing kind of sparked an idea before we wrap this up.
Sure.
You did say Faith No More. You said them a couple times this episode. So, I mean, they would be a great one too because you listen to an epic, you know, and you're kind of like, well,
it's almost
Faith
rap
No More,
rock. But
yeah, Faith No More don't even sound like this song. Like, because there's so many genres in their song, but they do have some heavy shit here and there.
Yeah.
And they are metal adjacent in a lot of ways, you know, but they've just, you know,
King
that would
for
be
a day, fool for a lifetime.
Yeah,
I
that would
love
be
that.
That would be a band too, where it's like, okay, this is cool. Maybe I need something a little more. Oh, I like when Mike screams here and there. That might be something that could lead you down the path as well. I mean, what an awesome band they are.
And I said them many times. I think the only reason I didn't go to them necessarily is because they're not active right now.
Right.
Like Mike's not really wanting to do it for various reasons, you know. So it is what it is. But yeah, you could definitely just same as like Devin Townsend or whatever.
Right.
There's so much.
Yeah, that's kind of why I said that.
Yeah.
Because kind of what you said, like genre hopping or kind of tying a lot of genres together. That's a good way to get other people involved or whatever. So
I think their greatest hits album, I forget what it's called, but I think it's just Faith No More Greatest Hits. But their second disc, I think, had a lot of just like chill atmosphere, a lot of Mike singing, like that orchestral opera type stuff.
So good though.
Yeah.
Okay, man. Well, if you guys want to let us know any of the bands you think we forgot, obviously in these kind of episodes, we're not going to be able to cover everything. I'm sure we missed some, but we try to. I think the point of this episode was just to if you know somebody that's trying to get into metal, maybe one of these bands that we mentioned, depending on where they're at in their path.
Yeah.
Or, knowing that person, like you said, oh, I know this person, maybe I'd hand them this one off the rack. You got to know where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Are they an Electric Forest guy?
Yeah.
Where do I start you at? How do I get you into the heavy guitars? How do I introduce you into a little bit of the five vocal without scaring you away?
Exactly.
Without giving you aborted.
Yeah. Without giving you shadow of intent, right? Like it's just.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
But let's start here. So, if you guys checked out the episode, comment below on anything that you guys, maybe even a band that got you into metal that we may have missed, or a gateway band that you think. Everybody's journey is different, and we always on the show like to hear about other people's journeys as well. If you did listen, we appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share this episode. We could really use the help right now. We kind of been on we're always growing.
Yeah,
we kind of been on just a
bit of a plateau.
Yeah, on YouTube, we're kind of stuck right there, and we're getting towards that 1,000, and I'd like to get there. I think that would be a great goal. And we don't ever really run this podcast by those numbers, but it is nice to see when we're making traction. And
the biggest thing for me on that note is it's just two people here.
Yeah.
And so there's only so much we're going to be able to do day in and day out, in our routine. And every time we talk about cultivating new ideas, it's those are great ideas, but it's how do we execute them and still carry what we're already doing?
And that's the major problem.
And we've said it many times, but if you see yourself being the third person on the show, there's room for you in the room.
Yeah.
We got a spot for a third person. It's just we're all the way over here in Muskegon, so it's you want to maybe live close by because we get together at 10 a.m. on Sundays.
Right.
You want to be here
almost every Sunday too.
Yep. Do you want to drive from Grand Rapids to be here at 10 a.m.? That's up to you. There's room, and we're in a niche podcast topic. We're talking about metal on Sunday morning. So but there's room for a third person to help us grow in some capacity. I don't even know if we need that person in the room or if we need a media marketing director type person to do more for us behind the scenes. But I mean, the shares help. The comments and the engagement help.
That's all we can ask for is a simple share, or share it with somebody that you think might like the show, or if you see a band that's one of your friends' bands, please share it. That helps the band, it helps us, and we can't live on social media. I appreciate what you do to get the stuff out there, and I try to follow through, but some days I'm just, by the end of the day, I'm so burned I don't even have time to do it. I got a few other things that'll be changing about that too. But with that being said, y'all, thanks for listening to the episode. Hopefully you got a few bands maybe that you can show some people to get into metal. So, all right, much love. Peace. Thank you so much for checking out the episode. Be sure to hit that like button and give us a share.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed our podcast today, please give it a rating on your streaming service to help us gain some exposure.
And if you really enjoyed the show, please give us a follow or hit that subscribe button and come hang out with us every week. And remember, keep it metal.